Hi, I'm Nan Simonsen. I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. I work with a Blue Zones Health Clinic. I have going on 7 years now. They were Lifestyle Medical in Riverside and Redlands, and now we've expanded to over $250, doctors, physicians, who are dedicated to the idea that lifestyle is medicine, and we teach the pillars of lifestyle medicine, which include a whole food, plant-based or plant-centered diet. And I've done that rather strictly for, well, since since the fall of 2018, and this is 2025 in March. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to make. We were invited by dear friends of ours to dinner at their house with another couple. The other couple is vegan. We are vegan, but I identify as whole food, plant-based, quite different than simply leaving animals off the plate. And they do this very kindly, although they are not. They made a completely plant-based meal. Well, they included in that meal a quite remarkable soup. It was a roasted cauliflower soup, and the one of the hosts gave me the recipe from the New York Times, from the New York Times. And I looked at the recipe, and the second ingredient was 7 tablespoons of oil, olive oil. And I don't add oil to my cooking for a number of reasons. It's not a whole food and da-da-da-da-da. And I am making this recipe from a recipe I saw online by the Cheeky Chickpea. Isn't that cute? And she calls it incredible roasted cauliflower soup. And I'll give her a thumbs up for that, because this is marvelous. So I wanted you to taste this and yourself, and so I'm making it again. And here we go. Every time I make something, I change things a little bit, but I'm going to keep it the way it is, and maybe give you some other ideas in the printed recipe, but we'll see. So I have a piece of cauliflower, and did you see it was just a floret, one floret from a bunch. I have a farm store that I stop at every Sunday, and we get bags of groceries to bring home, and then by golly, we better eat it, right? Because I don't waste food. And so I have this enormous head of cauliflower. I used a little for dinner last night. I used a little for lunch today. And I took a floret, cut it in half, and then to make it easy to get the smaller florets, I cut off the bottom, because all of this is going to be pureed. And at least part of it is pureed. And that's the difference between Saturday night's soup, the dinner party. It was completely pureed to this velvety, lovely consistency. And then there was a roasted tomato on top, roasted kind of mashed up tomato with harissa, which is a South African, Moroccan kind of a pepper, and it was a harissa sauce mixed in. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it very simple, and instead of pureeing it to a cream, part of it's pureed, the rest of it is left chunky, and you'll see that happen later. Instead of using, and even in her recipe, she has 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil for a medium to large cauliflower. This is a large cauliflower, and instead of using olive oil, I'm using my secret ingredient. So I'm changing things up already, and that is I'm using aquafaba. And what is aquafaba? It is the broth, typically, that is left from chickpeas, although it could be other peas. And if you make it yourself, you're going to have different viscosity, different looseness. And this one I made myself because I make chickpeas 3 pounds at a time, and I don't use a lot of water, so I get a nice kind of a viscous, the way you would out of a can of the aquafaba. And I am using this instead of oil. So is this going to stick the way oil does? No. Is it going to give me the same, exactly the same consistency of oil? No. But this is going to wet it with a starch, with a carbohydrate, which is what is in that broth, considering that it was the cooking broth of a legume. So there's some protein in there. There's even a tiny bit of fat, but very, very little, from a legume. And I don't know if you can see, but my hands are quite wet. And why do I want it wet? Well, I want to coat it with something. And I want to coat it with something that will brown a little, and the aquafaba will. So I'm going to move things out of the way and take a quick wash there. And I have a baking sheet, the kind with the sides. People call that a jelly roll pan in the industry. And I'm going to put this in there. My oven is preset for 425 degrees. I possibly would have been better off doing 2 sheet pans. But I think we'll be fine here. Simply because if it gets too congested, it steams. It doesn't, and I'm gonna do something else. Not necessary, I didn't do it before, but I'm gonna do it this time. This was such a large cauliflower. I'm gonna put the oven in a second on convection. That way it's blowing out the hot air, even though it ratchets its temperature down a little bit to accommodate. I like that idea because it will get into the nooks and crannies better of the cauliflower. I'm gonna salt and pepper it. And no, I am not whole food plant-based SOS free. I have fat in my foods. I have avocado and nuts and seeds and things like that. I've been part of Dr. Brooke Goldner's Goodbye Autoimmune and Goodbye Lupus protocols, where I do have oil, which is the flaxseed oil, because that has a certain physiological effect on the body as it relates to omega-3 fatty acids. But I don't cook with oil. And the reason I even brought up the SOS free is that I also do use salt. Part of her protocol is to drink over 100 ounces of water a day. Some people a gallon of water a day. And if you drink to that degree, you are going to wash out a lot of sodium and electrolytes, and she recommends strongly that we continue to use salt, and so I do. So I'm salting lightly, and I'm going to get in there and stir it halfway through, and I'm peppering it. And I'll put it in my oven. As I said, it's 425, but I am going to put it on convection. As I said, I'll do that after I'm finished with you. And then I'm going to take you over there to that pot, and I'm going to finish the soup. But we have 35 minutes. Let me mark that. There. And I'll go in there halfway through. Alexa, set timer for 17 minutes. And, did she hear me? Alexa, set timer for 17 minutes. And
good afternoon, ma'am. 17 minutes, starting now.
And so I'll stir it and then show you what I have when I'm finished. And then we'll make this, cook it again, the cauliflower, into a soup that we're having tonight, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to serve it with and why. Okay, I will be back to you in just a bit. Hi. All right, I'm back at my stove. I have a all-clad 8-quart pot here that I'm going to be using, and there's no oil in here. People say, and almost all all recipes will say, put in oil and then put in your aromatics. And I say that's not necessary, because you can use something as lowly as water, which I'm going to do, or as elevated as a nice broth. But I'm going to be adding a broth. I don't need to add more. And you're going to see that when we put in well, especially the onion, which is a famous aromatic, the combination of vegetables that I'm putting in now is called a mirepoix, the French term, usually including onion, carrot, celery, garlic, and then I have some herbs to throw in. So I am letting them weep, and that's what onions will do. If this were leeks, I could have used leeks in this dish and it would have given it a nice flavor. That's a drier onion. Garlic, you don't put it in by itself because garlic burns or browns too much. It becomes bitter. And the other thing I find is very helpful is to give it a light steam, which means putting on a cover for just a minute or two, and it forces the moisture back in and helps the onion weep even better. The point of doing this is that we very, very lightly brown the onion to caramelize it, to give it some flavor. Well, this is kind of an accelerated way of doing that, and I can crank up the heat at the very end, reduce the amount of water, and that will also, or broth or moisture, and that will also bring up the caramelization. Quite often in a dish like this, I'll throw in mushrooms and let them weep, and they add moisture, and then I really have quite a dish. Sometimes that's how I'll do mushrooms. Lots and lots of mushrooms, not that much onion, and yeah. You can see that they're moist. They're not dried out and pitiful. They're moist. And I'm going to add now some chopped carrot, some chopped celery, that mirepoix, and I can let it sit with the cover off and soften, because I just want to soften them a little bit. And at this point I'm going to add garlic, but I'm going to have the heat turned down a little. I'm going to have the cover on for sure. I don't want it hard roasting in there. Okay, and this was chopped garlic. 3 or 4 cloves make for a nice, nice flavor. Okay, and whoops, sorry. All right, and then we're going to take a look at the, I have a minute. I had the cauliflower set, as you know, for 35 minutes. Halfway through, I stirred it. I just pulled it out. I wanted it just a little browner, just a little bit. So I set it for another 5 minutes. And so rather than having Alexa interrupt me, Alexa, turn off timer. And
7-minute timer canceled.
there, look. Isn't that beautiful? I didn't need oil to do that. So I'm softening these vegetables just a touch. You know what I usually do? Typically, when I put something in my oven and I have that shot I had earlier, I don't know if you noticed that my onion is a pretty lapis color, like lapis lazuli. And it's, what, 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years old here. The house was built in 41, but the oven was new. And it's so shiny and beautiful. And no, I haven't had the extreme clean out that we quite often have to do with conventional ovens. What makes it unconventional? No animal fat, There's nothing no animal has been roasted in there, no chicken thighs, no ribs, no turkey. That would have caused that spattering that then hardens and browns and discolors, none of that. And I'm pleased about that, but I'm also pleased that the oven is still so pretty. All right, there, see? Can you see the moisture on here? It's just dripped back in here. It's softening these vegetables beautifully. And so many of you already know this. You're saying, come on, man, get on with it, and I will. Let's see. They're nice and soft. And we want to do that before we cook them with everything else, because they need to have a little bit of a pre-cook to bring out their flavors and to concentrate their juices. All right, so I put at the base of this pan the parchment paper, and now look how easy it is for me to get the cauliflower. Oh, you can't see. Let me think. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to open this up, move this over, and I'm going to put this on top of here because I wanted to show you something else. I'm going to give this a light chop because only part of the cauliflower is going to be turned into a puree. The rest of it will sit as crunch or as bits. They're not quite crunchy, of course, after all that ovenly abuse, but they certainly have some texture. So I'm giving them a little more of a chop. You don't have to. You could have a cauliflower soup that has big pieces, but I'm going to like this. And if you're wondering what this is, you may have seen me use it again and again in my big glass salad bowl, something called a quick cut, K-W-I-K-K-U-T, Amazon. Last time I looked, $10 to $15. It's on my Amazon page, and it's an instrument, that one, that I've had since I was 15, and a older, very sophisticated Swedish gentleman friend of my father's gave it to me because he knew I liked to cook. And he said, oh, it's so beautiful for chopping things like vegetables, but also like eggs in deviled eggs and chopped egg sandwiches and tuna with vegetables. And I don't do any of that anymore, but I still love my quick cut. Okay, there. So these are all ready to have the cauliflower introduced. So that's what I wanted to, well, I think I showed you, but I can show you when I lift it up. I'm grabbing the edges, they're not hot, of the parchment paper. Oh, I should have shown you this way. And just dumping them in. Quite often I'll reuse parchment paper. There's too much food matter on here. But for example, when I air fry my husband's previously steamed, I do it once a week, gold potatoes, Yukon Gold or whatever gold they have, it's a waxy potato. Then I kind of mash it down in its skin and put it in the air fryer. I have a Breville air fryer, but any air fryer will do, even though I happen to love that one. And I'll reuse the parchment again and again. I also have the option of just using a silicone mat. So, and then there's no throwing away of the parchment paper, which is also has silicone in it. So I have the vegetables, the chopped, roasted cauliflower, and now, and by the way, even though I had water here to add to the veggies while I was dry sauteing them, I never had to. I'm going to put in vegetable broth, and you can kind of see it here, separated. Well, now they've fallen together. Celery salt, thyme, Italian seasoning, So it's actually celery seed, thyme, Italian seasoning, and some salt. And you could use salt substitute, or if you're not used to using salt, this would taste salty to you, so you're fine just leaving it off. And I'm going to, I don't think I'm going to add that yet. No, okay. Because I am at a point going to add nutritional yeast, but we're going to wait. So I'm going to bring this to a boil it for, simmer it, turn it down, then simmer it for about 10 minutes. I'll get back to you, and then you'll see this beautiful finished soup, even though we won't, oh my goodness, we'll be eating it about, well, he'll be home, my husband, from the office in 20 minutes. So this is great timing. All right, be back. Okay, we are almost finished. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put, about 4 or 5 cups of the soup. And you know what I do with my Vitamix? I can't read these numbers. They're so faint, especially when I have things in there. So I make these little, I've made just with a felt pen, permanent marker, these little dots, and they represent 1. Turn this off. Okay. And each dot represents 1, so I'll know when I get to 5 or 6. I may want to put more broth in, because when you're using a medium or a medium-large cauliflower, how big is that? I don't know. So you can weigh it every time and then go by that for your liquid, but I didn't do all that. So I'm going to put this in here, blend it as well as I can with this, come back, add it to the soup, and see if I like the consistency. I have some more broth here. In the meantime, I think I'm going to add the nutritional yeast, and I might as well, yeah, I'll add the lemon juice now. You usually save the lemon juice for the very end, or near the end of a soup, a stew, the beans. Okay, that's on low. I'll be right back. Now, how do I blend something hot in a carafe? Very carefully. And the way I'll do it is put the cover on securely, but open up the center hole and lay a paper towel down there, so that I don't have things flying out of there. I'll leave the cap on and put a paper towel even on top of that. So I will, it's gonna leave you there. One more time, I'll be back. All right, this is what I have in my blender. And the night we went to our friend's home, this is what we had in a big, beautiful stoneware bowl. They were all custom made, and they had the dollop of roasted tomato and harissa. It was beautiful, and we very much enjoyed it, but I decided that this is enough for us right now. And I'm putting this into what's left in the pan. I even came back and got a little bit more of it, because I do want chunks, but I really want a creaminess in the background. And okay. All right, I love my Vitamix, but you have to work with all of its little, I was gonna call it divots, but they're not divots, they're protrusions. That's what makes it work so well. And if you get your spatula in there, you can do a pretty good job with it. And then tap a little, and that makes more of it fall down. Okay, and I'll work more on that later. I don't waste. You know what I do with my smoothie when it gets to this coated thing? I put a little water in it, put the cover on, shake it, and then drink that. But just a little water, so it's not insipid and like almost flavorless. Okay, so let's see what we have here. I don't need more broth. Yeah, I even had some additional broth. Oh no, I don't need it at all. Oh, this is beautiful. All right, I'm going to taste it. I'll show you in just a moment. I'm going to put some chopped celery. No, I don't mean celery. Well, I could. Celery leaves on it would be really nice. I have cilantro. I have parsley. I have sprigs of fresh lime. Oh, this is marvelous. Oh, here. Let me show you. I love big wide bowls. And you'll see in a photo that I will take. Now, what are we going to have for dinner? I'm going to show you in just a moment. I was breaking off a leaf. I have a little little vase. It's actually a little jar that I put fresh bay in and fresh sage and some of my vegetables. I didn't have a thyme sprig in there, so I'll just put one leaf of sage. Look how pretty this is. Isn't that nice? So this will be our, I'll call it main course, or maybe just a side dish. I could have it either way. It was the main course at our friend's, but then he also had fabulous roasted Brussels sprouts with a balsamic glaze. And we had, what else did we have? And then he made a wonderful plant-based pie dessert. Okay, all right. So we're going to have that, but I also am going to have it with these. This is my eggplant chickpea patty. And I'll put the recipe or the video link in the description. I'm putting these in the air fryer as soon as my husband gets home. It'll take just a few minutes. I want them crisp on the outside, still moist on the inside. I made a number of these and then I froze them and they're delicious. And are we gonna have them as a burger? No, because he had an open-faced avocado sandwich with air-fried potatoes. Plenty of starch, even though we're fine with lots of starch, but we're going to have them as lettuce wraps with tomato, onion, pickle, radishes, mustard, mayonnaise, whatever. And I'm very careful to get a mayonnaise or a mustard. I don't have mayonnaise. I have a tofu mayonnaise I use, but I'm careful to get a ketchup that is that has no sugar in it. It's anyway. So I think that's that. I want to thank you for dropping in. Please consider subscribing, share, let people know that whole food, plant-based lifestyle as medicine can take us a long way. I wrote my book talking about that, Aging Powerfully, and a little bit of an early story on me, so you'll know it wasn't always roses, just before I turned 70. And that was more than 4 years ago. I'm almost 74 and a half. And I say to people, I feel like I'm aging backwards using lifestyle as medicine. So that's all. Have a great day. I know I'm going to. Bye-bye.